First, it's a case that terrorized Western Washington for decades, but modern technology is bringing some closure to another family tonight. In the 80s and 90s, dozens of women and girls were found murdered in our area by serial killer Gary Ridgway, better known as the Green River Killer. An ancestry test helped identify this teenage girl decades later as one of his victims. This is Lorianne Respotnik, who officials once referred to only as Bone 17. In 1982, Lorianne was just 15 years old when she ran away from home in Lewis County. Her family never saw her again. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Rose.
And I'm Sabir Rayford. While we may never know how she crossed paths with the Green River Killer, we are learning more about who she was. Fox 13's Alejandra Guzman spoke with Lorianne's mother, Allie. What an emotional time this must be for her.
This is a mother's worst nightmare. In a way, she's angry knowing her daughter's life was taken from her and her body dumped. But now, this is where the healing begins. Her daughter has been found, and she can finally be laid to rest.
I have so many pictures, but this is the typical one that every child, especially little girls, don't want anybody to see.
A young Lorianne in pigtails and no teeth. One of the few pictures Donna has of her daughter.
She was a rascal like her dad.
A vivacious little girl who grew up to be your typical teenager.
You don't love me, you won't let me go horseback riding. Yeah. I'm mad at you today.
One of the last conversations Donna recalls having with Lori. She was 15 years old when she ran away in 1982, which was not uncommon for her to do.
I had to go to tough love.
Donna had a son she needed to look after. It pained her, but she moved on, hoping Lori would eventually return home.
You just tell yourself that you hope she's happy and doing something she wants to do.
The young mother says she worried and wondered where her daughter was. She says she had a private investigator look for her, even reached out to friends and law enforcement, but even if they found her, no one would be able to force her back home.
Did you ever have a feeling that your daughter was no longer here with you alive?
Several times.
At the same time,
we spent the majority of 1984 recovering bodies.
An overwhelming reality as girls and young women fell prey to the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway.
I thought to myself, it wouldn't surprise me if Lori was one of the victims. Last picture we ever got.
Her disappearance remained a mystery until December 30th, 1985, when City of Auburn employees were called to investigate a car over an embankment near the Mountain View Cemetery. Detectives found human remains. They kept digging and found a second set. They were labeled Bone 16 and Bone 17. In 2002, Ridgway led detectives to the same area and admitted to placing the victims there.
Guilty.
He pleaded guilty in 2003 to murdering these two victims, but for years, their identities remained unknown until Donna says her granddaughter took a DNA test for an ancestry service.
It popped as a match for Lori.
A devastating discovery confirmed by a DNA test and King County detectives who visited her in Juneau, Alaska, and walked her through the cold case.
It just adds a layer of guilt that I hadn't found her. I hadn't saved her from that fate.
As a mother, she never gave up looking for her daughter, and neither did detectives. She's no longer Bone 17. She's Lorianne Respotnik.
Finally know where she is. Now I have to put her where she needs to be. I'm going to try and have her buried at her dad's right shoulder, because that was her favorite spot.
As for convicted killer Gary Ridgway, this is the most recent photo the Department of Corrections has of him, taken back in 2017. Ridgway pleaded guilty in 2003 to killing 49 women, but some believe he could have as many as 70 victims. He is serving a life sentence for those killings. The King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office tells us this isn't the end of the road for this case. They are still trying to identify the other women and girls who were killed. In the newsroom, Alejandra Guzman, Fox 13 News.
Allie, thank you. We're tracking what may be another serial killer in King County. Prosecutors say the deaths of at least 4 people may be tied to this man. Coming up in about 25 minutes, Fox 13's Frankie Thompson will explain how he tempted his alleged victims with a rather unusual proposition. And new details tonight about the murder of a missing Linwood woman in Las Vegas.
Police say the suspect's 90-year-old Sakari Harden and her ex-boyfriend, 27-year-old Chance Comanche, set up a paid sex appointment to lure Marina Rogers and then strangled her with an HDMI cord when she got in the car. According to court docs, Rogers believed she was earning $1,000 for an encounter with Comanche arranged by Harden. Comanche told police that Harden told him about some issues she was having with the victim over a Rolex watch. They started planning her murder at the end of November and initially tried to have someone else do it, but eventually docs say they acted on their reported plot when Comanche, who played for the Stockton Kings, was in Vegas for a game. Arden is charged with 1 count of murder and will be in Las Vegas courtroom again tomorrow. Comanche was dropped from his team the day of his arrest. He's being held without bail in Sacramento.
Detectives in Snohomish County are asking for your help. They want to know if you recognize any of the people you see in these photos. They're believed to be part of a larger group, organized criminals breaking into homes of Indian American families during the day. The group has been seen in a black early 2000s Mercedes sedan and a newer silver Mercedes SUV. In the last few weeks, a number of homes have been broken into in unincorporated Bothell along 35th Avenue Southeast between 180th Street and 228th Street. If you live in that area and you have home surveillance cameras, detectives would like you to see if you have any video of these suspects. And this is a good reminder to always make sure you secure your valuables and double check that all of your doors and windows are properly locked. And if you see anything suspicious in your neighborhood, call 911.
We have a warning for parents in the North Shore School District. Staff says a man tried to grab a student who was walking home from Arrowhead Elementary. A parent called the office to report what happened. They say their children reported seeing a white Tesla follow them several days in a row from the gym into their neighborhood on Friday. One of the children says the driver rolled his window down and tried to grab her arm. They say he was bald and had tattoos. The school sent out a letter to families, but it's a good reminder to have a chat with your children about safety. Do not walk alone. Do not get into a stranger's vehicle. Put up a fight if someone tries to grab you, and tell an adult right away if something suspicious happens.
Learning more about the mom of 7 who was shot and killed at Oakland Madrona Park in Tacoma Monday morning. Police are investigating her death as a homicide. Family members tell us she was beaten and then shot in the head.
They also say that she had just given birth to her 7th child this spring. Fox 13's Jennifer Dowling has more details on her life and how loved ones are honoring this Tacoma mother.
Candles now line part of the park as a tribute to Neri Tusi. Her family says that her killer is still on the loose and they're hoping for justice. Neri Tusi was an important part of her large and tight-knit family. Matei, who didn't want her last name used for safety reasons, called her her sister and shared this online post with us that she created to honor the young mom who was found shot to death early Monday morning. Although she was too emotional to go on camera right now, Matei shared these pictures, writing that she was a young mother of 7 who just gave birth in the spring to her youngest daughter. Matei says that Neri lived her life out loud and is deeply missed. Neri's body was found beneath this picnic structure at around 8:30 Monday morning. Friends and family stopped by to pay their respects Monday night into Tuesday, leaving candles as a tribute. We first talked to neighbor Nathan Carlisle Monday. Today he told us he was shocked to learn who the victim was.
And I heard that she had a lot of kids around the holidays. It's horrible.
He says it's even more unsettling that someone would take her life in a public place.
That's shocking, and that makes it just 10 times worse, or a million times worse, that it was a mom, with kids.
Matei says Neri's mom, dad, and siblings are devastated. She says they are a Samoan family who treat our extended family as immediate family. Neri's Uncle Louis said she is a family member who was well known, and she was a great mother. That's the part that is crushing, that she now has 7 babies that are now going to have to do life without her. Carlisle says his heart goes out to them.
That makes it even worse, in my opinion, that would happen to a mom, of all people. So, yeah, very disheartening.
Family members say they are working on setting up a fundraiser for Neri's 7 children. Reporting from Tacoma, Jennifer Dowling, Fox 13 News.
We have new video into our newsroom tonight of what could be the getaway car for a person who murdered a prized horse in Pierce County. We first introduced you to Lemon last night. His owners found him shot to death inside his stable this weekend at their home near Parkland. Take a good look at your screen right here. This is video from their home surveillance cameras. This white sedan was seen leaving the area just after midnight, around the time the homeowners reported hearing what sounded like fireworks.
There was a huge, bang, and the dogs all went off, but we really didn't do anything because we hear stuff like that all the time now. And then I went out to feed that morning, and he didn't nicker at me, and I went around the corner, and he was laying out dead, the horse.
Here is a look at the car one more time, seen leaving the area. Detectives haven't been able to tie it to this case yet, but say they're looking into it. If you have information that may help solve this case, call the Pierce County Sheriff's Department right away.
We're going to a healthy population to get these bears.
Bearing the burden of reintroduction. Just ahead, how moving grizzly bears back to the Evergreen State would work, according to someone who's done it all before.
But the behavior in and of itself is alarming.
Man accused of inappropriately touching children in Edmonds, even sniffing the feet of one young girl, is back on the street. The dire warning from police and local schools.
Grizzly bears in Washington State. The hotly debated topic is now in the wait-and-see period.
A public comment period wrapped up in November, and the next step won't come till next year. Fox 13's Matthew Smith has been reporting on the efforts to return grizzlies to the Cascades. And recently he had the chance to talk with the biologist that helped move dozens of grizzlies into Montana's Cabinet Mountains.
We're looking at a grizzly bear leaving what's known as a culvert trap. It's the most typical tool used to move one of these large bears from one area to another. It's also a situation that's played out repeatedly in Montana's Cabinet Mountains, an area that at one point saw its bear population dwindle into the single digits.
I think the cabinets represent an example of how it can occur.
Recently, I caught up with Wayne Castworm at Woodland Park Zoo. Here, you can see a grizzly bear in the Living Northwest area. But the hope for Castworm and others is that one day bears like this will be in the wild.
We would be looking at young bears in order to make the move. Bears that are, number one, maybe more adaptable to a new landscape, but also bears with their reproductive life ahead of them, because these bears are going to be the basis for jump-starting a population.
Castworm and colleagues did something similar in northwest Montana. Today, there's a population of grizzlies there in the mid-30s, but that work didn't start from scratch like it would here. What is familiar, though, is the push and pull seen during meetings and written comments about the grizzly. Comments that have pitted people within our state against one another.
We already have this oversaturation of predators.
From those on the east side, where numerous farm organizations have come out against the reintroduction to grizzlies, to tribes. In our own area alone, you have various groups on opposing sides. One local tribe council writing, quote, "The Sauk-Suiattle Indian tribe does not hesitate in initiating litigation and all other means necessary to preserve the promises made in its treaty with the United States," adding, "Consider this as a letter of opposition." Meanwhile, the Upper Skagit tribe praised reintroduction plans, writing, quote, "We respect the grizzly bear's right to coexist, just as it did with our ancestors for thousands of years before contact with the first Europeans to enter our homeland."
Not that, the public is 100% supportive, but in the early days of this, we had a lot of concern from the public, and it was expressed in a variety of means, but those have diminished quite a bit.
While no two spots are the same in terms of sentiment or ecology, Castworm tells me his decades-long work in the Cabinet Mountains could serve as a blueprint.
On balance, again, we've taken that population from single digits back up to 30 to 35 animals, and we're seeing reproduction going on as well by the bears we put there. And in fact, from some of the initial bears that we put there, we're now into the third generation arising from those bears, which I think points to the success of the program.
So you might be wondering what actually happens next. Casworm and other biologists with U.S. Fish and Wildlife are poring over thousands of comments that have previously been made. They'll pull them all together and make comments or responses to questions that the public had. A final EIS, or environmental impact statement, will then come out in spring of 2024, and that should give us a better idea whether or not grizzlies could actually be appearing in Washington state. Of course, in the meantime, the debate continues. Reporting in the newsroom, Matthew Smith, Fox 13 News.
Fox 13 has been covering the details surrounding this plan on air and online for some time. For more on Matt's reporting, look for this story on fox13seattle.com. And we're linking back to our previous stories that break down the plans and the back and forth with local communities with the reaction to bringing the bears back to our state.
A local shelter hopes you can make some animals' holiday season a little brighter by giving them a home. Posado's Safe Haven says they are at full capacity through the end of the year. They're cutting their adoption fees so you can take home a cat for $25 or a dog for $50. Here's a look at some of the pets available right this second. If you'd like to see the rest, head to posadosafehaven.org/adopt. We've also put a link up on our website, fox13seattle.com. Just too cute to see right now. Well, let's talk about tonight's weather news with a live look outside. You can see that fog in the South Sound. Wow, and it's just kind of taking over right now. Meteorologist Claire Anderson is here to break it all down for us with more details on this fog. Wow.
Yeah. And remember earlier we were talking about we're going to watch the fog. It's going to move back in. Well, it really moved back in. Mother Nature was like, I'll show you fog. Look at Olympia. Just within the last hour or so, we can't even see. This is boats and buildings all behind you are watching it. Just again, 25, 30 minutes ago, and it's completely sucked in. So for tonight, the dense fog is there, and it's going to stay put, especially into tomorrow morning. We have dense fog really into the South Sound for tonight. So let's take a look. Visibility is down at half a mile or below for JBLM, along with Tacoma, Fort Lewis, Puyallup, at a third of a mile out towards Olympia. You can see it updating in real time. 2.5 miles out towards Tacoma. You're even seeing some dense fog up toward Renton, Bremerton, the Hood Canal area. A lot of fog there. If you're driving out towards Issaquah and Snoqualmie Pass, a lot of fog. Not as much fog up towards the North Sound. That's because they're slowly getting rid of the clouds and the showers. But for tonight, the dense fog advisory does continue into Wednesday at 10 a.m. for especially in Tacoma, parts of the South Sound out towards Centralia. So just keep that in mind tonight and into tomorrow morning. And that advisory might expand as fog continues to build tonight. So we've got fog in the South Sound because this is where the rain stopped the soonest. We are seeing better clearing there. We're still seeing some clouds up into the North Sound. So again, as things really continue to clear out, that might be also added. But the rain has moved out. We're seeing a lot drier skies. Rainfall totals, most of it was down to the South Sound, where we saw about a quarter of a mile visibility for JBLM, about a third for Bremerton and Olympia. A little bit less rain up north, almost just over 3/4 of an inch for Forks, 1/4 of an inch towards Wenatchee. Now, temperatures, I want to point out, we've been really mild, and I feel like I've been using that word a lot, but that's because the temperatures right now past 10 o'clock are our usual high temperatures for this time of year. So not too bad out there. We actually topped out in the low 50s, and Olympia had a record high for this day. So in perspective, these are really mild. Upper 40s towards Bremerton, upper 40s towards Arlington, 47 currently for Bellingham. Little cooler, of course, eastern Washington and up at Snoqualmie Pass. Futurecast for tonight, we will see that fog continue to settle into the South Sound through the rest of the Puget Sound area into tomorrow morning. Models are showing a lot of this fog just being stubborn and not completely clearing. So if it doesn't clear all the way, it'll be a little bit cooler into the afternoon. But up above, we'll see nice clear skies for the Cascades, and then we see dry skies continuing into Wednesday. No major issues driving over the mountain passes. You'll see dry skies Wednesday. Late Thursday into Friday, we'll start to see a few more showers and rain-snow mix, but nothing major heading our way. Dry skies Wednesday, Thursday. Rain returns for Friday with a drier weekend in store. And then for the holiday, Monday, we start to see the rain returning as well.
Almost 3 years after the Capitol insurrection, a Puyallup couple has learned their fate. Why prosecutors say they were hoping for a harsher sentence.
The Colorado Supreme Court rules former President Donald Trump is barred from the state's presidential primary ballot. I'm Mather Rivera in Washington, and I've got the details coming up.
A couple from Puyallup has been sentenced for their role in the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol in 2021. Scott and Holly Christensen pleaded guilty to charges of parading, demonstrating, or picketing inside the Capitol, according to the Tacoma News Tribune. The couple will serve 3 years of probation and 30 days home confinement as part of the plea deal. Prosecutors were hoping for jail time because they say the couple showed little to no remorse for their actions that day. A Supreme Court decision in Colorado is placing the blame for the January 6th insurrection on former President Donald Trump. The court kicked the Republican candidate off the state's ballot, declaring the twice impeached Trump ineligible to run. The decision marks the first time ever that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment has been used to disqualify a presidential candidate.
Fox News reporter Madeline Rivera has more details.
In a stunning 4-3 decision, the Colorado Supreme Court kicked former President Trump off the state's presidential primary ballot. The court says because of his actions on January 6, Trump is disqualified from holding the office of president under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. It bars anyone who has previously taken an oath to support the Constitution from holding public office if they have engaged in insurrection or rebellion.
To reach this decision, the court had to decide that, one, the January 6th Capitol riot was in fact an insurrection, and that, two, Trump engaged in insurrection on January 6th, and third, that it actually applies to the president.
This is the first time that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment has been used to keep a presidential candidate off the ballot, a conclusion the court insists it did not reach lightly. It marks a reversal from a district judge's finding last month that the provision did not apply to the presidency.
I think we're going to see very quickly the argument about whether this court was politicized.
There are at least a dozen states where Trump disqualification lawsuits are pending. Colorado's ruling injecting more uncertainty in an already unpredictable race for the White House.
Trump has unfinished business, but there's nothing saying that he's going to finish what he started anyways.
Trump's campaign blasting the decision as part of a scheme to interfere in an election on behalf of President Biden.
Then we're going to crush crooked Joe Biden next November.
An appeal to the Supreme Court is almost sure to happen, but Colorado officials say the issue must be settled by January 5th, the deadline for the state to print its presidential primary ballots. In Washington, Mather Rivera, Fox 13 News.
We believe that there's sufficient evidence to prove four murder charges beyond a reasonable doubt.
A local man arrested 2 years ago is now being called a serial killer. What we're learning about new victims and how he allegedly lured them to their deaths.
And the public scrutiny is high. Jurors are going to want to look at this from every possible angle.
Back to square one again. Why deliberations in the trial of 3 Tacoma police officers charged in the death of Manny Ellis are starting over. Now that could affect the timing of a verdict in the case. Could there be a new serial killer in our state? King County prosecutors say the deaths of at least 4 people may be tied to one man. And get this, investigators say the victims were all allegedly lured to their deaths with the promise of buried gold. Richard Bradley was already charged in the murder of Brandy Blake back in 2021. The latest court documents suggest 3 other men have been identified as victims as well. Fox 13's Frankie Thompson has a closer look.
In the case against Richard Bradley Jr., diligent detective work tells the story in the murders of 4 people.
When you look through these charging documents, the details are equally hard for deputies and for prosecutors to read.
Casey McNerney, spokesperson for the prosecutor's office, says Bradley is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree murder. Court documents reveal the suspected killer has a common scheme. He tells an individual that he needs their help digging up gold, lures them out to a wooded area alone with him, murders them, and buries or leaves their body deep in the park. After completing his murder, the defendant takes possession of the victim's vehicle and anything inside the vehicle and is seen driving the vehicle in the hours or days after the victim is missing.
It's rare to see cases like this. We have seen them before, certainly, and you see them from time to time. They're rare, And the likelihood of that happening to anybody at random is low, but that doesn't mean that these victims' lives are any less valuable.
The case all started with Brandy Blake, an associate of Bradley's who disappeared in May 2021. That same month, investigators with Auburn Police Department found her body in the woods of Game Farm Wilderness Park. Detectives say within 30 feet of her body, 3 rib bones were discovered. Prosecutors were on scene for a closer look.
It's better to have a prosecutor who is there from the start, who is there at the crime scene, who is there at the autopsy, to explain to a judge and jury exactly what was seen.
While Bradley was in custody charged for Blake's murder, Auburn detectives were investigating the rib bones. In April 2022, DNA testing confirmed the identity of Amelia Maturin, another associate of Bradley's who was reported missing in August 2019. Court documents say Emilio's girlfriend last saw him with Bradley on July 19, 2019. The girlfriend told detectives she heard Bradley tell Emilio he needed help digging up some buried gold in Auburn. The girlfriend said Emilio was skeptical at first and wanted to know why Bradley was asking him. Bradley told him he was the only one he could trust. Prosecutors say Emilio's family finally have some answers to what happened to him.
You can have a conviction, you can have somebody behind bars, but that loss is never really made up for.
In a different part of Auburn in the woods, detectives say they found the remains of a father and son in April 2021. Documents say with Michael Goldman and Vance Lakey, the defendant lured them to a different wooded area in Auburn, but 2 small shovels were found next to the victims' decaying bodies. And the defendant was seen driving the victim's car and motorcycle in the days following their disappearance. Though Bradley is suspected of deceiving and killing 4 people, it leaves the question if anyone else was a victim of his scheme.
If additional cases, whether it be murder or any other kind of criminal charge, is referred to us from sheriff's deputies, King County prosecutors are going to act on that right away.
Frankie Thompson, Fox 13 News.
Well, Bradley has a criminal history. He was previously convicted for robbery, eluding police, burglary, solicitation to commit arson, and he had a federal conviction for an unregistered gun. He's being held at the King County Jail with no bail. His next court hearing is scheduled for January 12th.
The fate of 3 Tacoma police officers charged in the death of Manny Ellis has been in the hands of a jury for almost a week. But tonight, deliberations are starting over again for the second time. Today, the judge overseeing the case in a Pierce County courtroom announced that another juror has been replaced, this time because of COVID. It's a delay that legal experts say is necessary to ensure a fair trial.
So when you bring in a new juror, and that juror's missed 2 or 3 days of deliberations, the other jurors have to bring the juror up to speed. Jurors are going to want to look at this from every possible angle, so when it's done, they feel it's defensible and they did the right thing.
There are 4 alternate jurors assigned to the case, which, according to Lindquist, should be enough. Even if more delays occur, Lindquist also tells Fox 13 that he believes a verdict in this case will not come until January.
We have a follow-up to a story we first brought you last night about a man caught lurking around a ballet class. The Edmonds man was arrested for grabbing a child in a dressing room. Now he's back on the streets. Authorities are not sharing his name, but here's his photo. He was first arrested after following a child into a dressing room after a ballet class at the community center in town. Surveillance footage showed him smelling another kid's feet. The man in his mid-30s was booked into the Snohomish County Jail. Prosecutors said they did not have enough evidence to charge him with a felony, and he was released. Within the last 10 days, he's been spotted on the grounds of multiple schools in Edmonds.
Subsequent to that arrest, there's been some additional information, investigation that's come out, including this person being seen at other public areas and people calling 911 on him, where we have responded and he's been trespassed from those locations. But there's been no other probable cause for any crime, so there's been no reason to arrest him for anything else. But the behavior in and of itself is alarming, especially having occurred after being arrested for something like this.
Edmonds police are asking anyone who has encountered this man to come forward and share their story. They also want parents to have conversations with their kids. They're afraid of what may happen if this pattern of creepy behavior continues. A school bus carrying special needs students and staff survived a terrifying crash in Renton this afternoon.
It turned out to be deadly for the other car that hit the bus. Joining us from the scene is Fox 13's Nia Wong with more on what happened. Nia.
Police say this deadly crash happened just before 1 p.m. and it was so severe it shut down a portion of 3rd Street for most of the afternoon.
A young woman is dead after police say this red sedan was speeding down this hill on 3rd Street.
He lost control, spun out, fishtailed, and then hit the school bus.
Police say 2 students with the adult transition program, as well as a school aide and driver, were on board this bus at the time and thankfully survived without any injuries. The sedan was carrying 3 people. Police say the victim was riding in the front seat when she was killed, while the driver and a backseat passenger were sent to a hospital for their injuries. Officers had to shut down 3rd Street between Bronson and Edmonds for the investigation.
Preliminary investigation shows that the red sedan was traveling westbound down the hill at a high rate of speed.
Risky driving behavior that's sadly become too familiar for neighbors in the area.
Definitely going down the hill, people fly quite often, honestly.
Vong Nguyen says speeding gets even worse past these traffic lights.
I think the posted speed zone is like 35 miles per hour, but you could easily get caught up in 45, 50, just, even while braking.
While police continue to investigate, they're reminding drivers to be mindful of following the speed limit.
It's dark, it's wet, and the ground is slippery. So you really need to decrease your speed and pay attention to those around you. It's just not worth it.
So far, the identities of the people involved in this crash have not been revealed, but police did tell us that everyone involved in the sedan is believed to be between their late teens and early 20s. For now, in Renton, Nia Wong, Fox 13 News.